cool chemistry cats. It's Miss DeAngelis here. Are you guys ready for another exciting round of chemistry? I hope that answer is yes, because today we're going to be discussing the difference between a molecule of an element and a molecule of a compound. So those are going to be the concepts that we're going to learn today. This is part one. Part two is we're actually going to be counting the number of atoms that are inside these molecules of a compound or molecules of an element. So today, let's just stick with one topic. All right, so you can look at the pictures here, and if you look at the red atoms, the red balls that you see here, these represent one atom of an element. So for example, we'll say helium. That's just a single atom of helium. I just chose it as an example. Over here, we have a molecule of an element, and a molecule basically means that we have two or more atoms that are together. Now, this is a molecule of an element because they are the same type of atom. So it is it's a molecule of an element when it is the same. Okay, oh my gosh, must have told a joke, right? Get it? Chemistry is so much fun, guys. Okay, all right, so over here, we are going to look at molecules of a compound. So if you notice, we have different colors in here. So that means that we have several different atoms that have been combined together. And over here, we've got Chex Mix. So we've got M&Ms, we've got potato chips, we've got things that are singular. So here's our helium in this red ball here. Here is our molecule of helium, meaning that we have two or more atoms of that same element together. Now remember, if this is the same, then over here for molecules of a compound, it has to be different. And then here is your molecule of a compound here. So this is just a hodgepodge. Think of it as our big Chex Mix. Okay, moving on. So we learned earlier in the year that atoms are the smallest part of an element that cannot be broken down by chemical means. So an atom is the basic, smallest. You can't break it down. Now, guys, I know that we've got quarks and everything else that you have heard out there, but for 8th grade science, we are only dealing with the fact that atoms for now are the smallest part of an element and they cannot be broken down by chemical means. And of course, you know that the neutron and the proton are inside the nucleus here, and the electrons are hanging out in the electron cloud on the energy rings. Again, just to review the charges, we know that the neutron is neutral, it has a 0 charge, protons are positive, and of course, our electrons are negative. Okay, so let's talk about molecules. Molecules are any two or more atoms combined. But wait, Miss DeAngelis, these are all different. That's right, because they're molecules of compounds. When you're looking at the atoms that are connected here, these are different. So when they're different, they are compounds. Okay, molecules of a compound are different atoms. H2O, we have two H and an O. Obviously, the O is not like the H, so we can say officially that this is a compound because O and H are different. Okay, so again, if they are different and we have oxygen and we have hydrogen. Okay, over here we have sodium and chlorine. Okay, they are different, meaning that they are compounds. If we look at molecules of elements, they are the same. So these two elements that are attached, they're both hydrogen, guys. And one H is the same as the other H. So it's hydrogen, it is the same. So it is a molecule of an element. And here, oh gosh, you must have laughed so hard because we have He 3 times. This again is the same And so we can assume, based on the principles that we know of chemistry and chemical bonds and atoms and elements, that this is a molecule of an element, also denoted as H with a E with a subscript of 3. Okay, so what is the difference between an element and a compound? So the difference between elements and compounds, if you look at calcium, calcium is just it's an element. It's in the purest form. There is nothing else attached to the element. So therefore it is in its purest form. So this is an element because it is single and there's nothing else. What is a compound? A compound is when we have different atoms of elements. Different atom of elements. I guess the pen doesn't want to write over here. But anyway, that should say elements. So different atoms of elements written together. So for example, you would have OMG. Did you hear that oxygen and magnesium are a couple? Hee. See, that even got 3 he's out of that. So that, if you were to write that, that would be HE3. So that is your HE3 is your molecule of an element. HE subscript 3, that is your, again, molecule of an element. And O and Mg, O is oxygen, Mg is magnesium, and therefore it is a molecule of a compound because these things are different. Okay, what is an element? And an element we just talked about is a pure substance that cannot be broken down. Examples would be pure gold, silver, copper, oxygen, carbon, helium, basically everything that's on the periodic table. So here this patient is receiving pure oxygen, and here it looks like we have gold, and then this is the, on the periodic table, this is a representation of nickel and all of the numbers associated with that element. Okay, so elements made up of only one type of atom. So we could come over here and we could talk about neon, and there's only one atom of neon. Or we could have 22 atoms of neon attached together. It doesn't matter. It is a molecule of an element because it means that they are all the same. So guys, when you're doing your activities together later in your notebooks, please be mindful. If the element is the same, it is a molecule of an element. Otherwise, if they are different, they're going to be compounds. So if I asked you how many atoms are in here, okay, the number you see, if the count the number of capital letters to determine if it's a molecule of an element or a molecule of a compound. So we only have one capital letter here, meaning that we have a singular element, but we've got 22 of these atoms that are just attached together. So we have 22 atoms of one singular type of element. What is a compound? A compound is 2 or more chemicals that make a new substance, such as salt, which is NaCl, or 2 substances like sodium and chlorine. For example, chocolate is another compound. C6H12O6, guys, that is glucose that you would get with the chemical reaction from the sun. That's a sugar that's produced by the plant. Okay, now one thing to understand too is that NaCl, sodium, and chlorine by themselves are actually pretty toxic, but when they combine together, they go through this chemical reaction so that they are a harmless substance after that point. So again, a compound is when there are 2 or more elements that make a new substance. Okay, that is a compound. So let's look. 2 or more different atoms chemically combine, and they can't easily be separated. So this is the formula for hydrogen peroxide, and we cannot easily take these apart. I mean, you could at some point, but this is definitely a compound because we have different elements together. And again, in a previous slide, I told you to count the capital letters. The capital letters tell you how many elements are actually in that formula. So we have two capital letters, meaning that we have 2 different types of elements. And if I were to count up 2 plus 2 is 4. So I have a total of 4 atoms, which I do. 1, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. So yes, so I do actually have 4 atoms within this compound. Over here, NaCl, we know that again, there's Na and Cl, so they are different. And if guys remember, if they are different, they are a compound. And water, of course, is written as H2O. So I have 2H and 1O, which is different. Okay, so what is a mixture? A mixture is different atoms combined by physical process. It's a physical process, guys, that like if you mixed salt and water and eventually that water evaporated, you'd be left with the salt that's at the bottom. And when the salt is at the bottom, we've officially separated one compound from another compound. So usually a mixture is when you can easily separate. So think about you have a bunch of M&Ms and you're going to mix them with a bunch of peanuts. You could very easily separate the peanuts from the M&Ms. Or you have, let's say, marbles, and you mix them with, I don't know, a bag of chips. You could easily separate the chips and the marbles. So it's not hard to separate a mixture. But for some of these compounds, it's hard to separate them. So to sum it up, guys, we know that molecules of elements are the same type of atom. Okay, so when it's the same, it is a molecule of an element. When they are different, they are molecules of compounds. Molecules of compounds have different atoms of elements. And again, you would figure out how many different elements you have based on the number of capital letters that you see within the formula or within the picture, if it happens to be a graphic drawing of the chemical formula itself. Okay, guys, this is going to end part 1. We will get into part 2 at another point. I want you to fill out your Google form for your Edpuzzle and then go ahead and start on your notebook. Any questions, you can ask me shortly, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.